This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so just a reminder, now we are in the second half of the semester. So if you do have any classes that start the second 8 weeks, this is the week that you want to begin those classes, especially if you're taking something online. So make sure you're checking in and keeping up with all the assignments there. And hopefully you've had the opportunity. I did put that announcement out there that I opened up some of the homework assignments over spring break. So if you took advantage of some of that, you could have done some of that in case you missed an assignment or you had to go back and review something. You had that opportunity. So we are going to be continuing on with our sections today, and we're going to be getting into our financial section now. And with the financial section, this is going to go along with project number 2. And I'll announce project number 2 next week because as I'm actually doing next week's some sections out of the book that actually directly relates to the project so that I can parallel those two back and forth. So today we're going to start with reviewing credit cards. And this is kind of an interesting section and a depressing section all in once because we really get to understand how credit cards work if you're not as familiar with it as, like I know when I first had a credit card, I wasn't very familiar with it. So let's take a look here. So this is what we're going to be going over. We are going to be looking at calculating a monthly finance charge based on an APR. Now, an APR is the annual percentage rate that they usually give you in some of these credit cards. And we're going to also look at some of the other hidden fees and some of the penalties that sometimes are associated with credit cards if you don't make your payments on time. All right, we're also going to be I'm going to do a little bit of an Excel demonstration to show how you can actually calculate this yourself. So if you do have a credit card out there right now and you're trying to pay it off, I'll show you how you can set this up and kind of get an idea of how long it's going to take you to pay off a balance there. And we want to talk about the importance of good credit and how to maintain that. So those are the main objectives that we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so exactly what is good credit? Basically, anytime you make some sort of a payment, it could be credit card, it could be a student loan, a utility bill, your phone bill, anytime you're making some sort of a payment, that is actually part of your credit score. All right, it's not just a credit card that goes into that. It's anything that you're going to be paying towards. Now, there are these credit bureaus that maintain people's uh, financial, uh, let's see, I can't think of the word for it, how credit worthy you are. Okay, so credit scores are a number that's assigned to you based on your credit worthiness. In other words, how good you've been paying your bills on time, if you've skipped anything or whatever. Now, generally, they're between 300 and about 850-ish, something like that. And the higher the credit score, the better your ranking is. Now, the good thing about having a really good credit score is when you go to apply for a loan or you're going to apply for a new credit card, most of the time you're going to be able to qualify for a better interest rate, that APR, that annual percentage rate. So that's what you want to do. You want to have the best credit possible. Now, if maybe you don't have the best credit right now, maybe sometimes people get laid off and, things go aside and you have to, pay certain bills ahead of time. The good thing is credit scores come up very quickly. So if you're looking to purchase something big in the future, like a home, a car, something like that, you can really build that credit score up quickly. Now, here is a video you can click on. Um, it's in your book. these videos here, and it talks about the credit report. So you can actually get the credit report here. And I'm going to see if it'll take me here. I'm hoping. Let's see if I can get this. Let me see. Copy. I'm going to see if it's going to allow me to go here on my computer here. Sometimes it's a little fussy. So let me see if I can get that. Well, apparently it's being fussy today. So, but you can definitely go through and find a copy of your credit report. This is a website, we have checked it out ahead of time. So you can see, sometimes it's kind of interesting when you want to see your credit report, because when I was checking mine one time, I actually found out that somebody from Wisconsin, and I live in Indiana, somebody from Wisconsin was using my name for a credit card someplace else. And so then you have to get that removed off your credit report. I don't know how they got it, but somehow they applied for one and it was under my name. So that was kind of interesting. So this will give you some information, and no, it won't put a ding on your account. Some people like, oh no, if I check my credit, it's going to put a ding on it. If you're checking it for yourself, there is no, what they call it, a ding or a point off of it or something. But if you're applying for credit cards, or you're going for a loan or something and they check it out. So if you're going to go for you're looking for a used car and they go, well, why don't you just give me your information and I'll run your credit report. Don't do that. Don't do that unless you're ready to purchase, because that's where it's going to affect your credit rating, because too many people then are starting to look into your credit. Okay. So let me go back a second here. Like I said, the better your credit rating, the better APR you're going to qualify for. And as long as you continue to pay your bills on time and you keep up with that, you can build your credit up. Now, when my husband and I were purchasing our last home, I had, we knew ahead of time we were going to be doing this. So we were making sure we were paying off bills, doing all that. And one of the things that came up for me is my credit rating was a little bit lower than my husband's. I'm like, how could that be? I paid off all my accounts. I don't have any balances on anything. I had some of those smaller little stores in the mall kind of credit cards. And they said, that's the problem. You're not using your credit. So I thought that was really interesting. So in order to show your credit worthiness, you have to show that you're using and you're building your credit. So a couple times a year, what I'll do is I'll go to one of those stores shopping. I'll pull out my credit card. I'll pay it with the little credit card there. As soon as I get my balance there of my bill, then I just pay the whole thing off at that point. So then I'm establishing my credit. So I thought that was really unusual that my was lower because I wasn't using any credit. Okay, so we're going to go through what it's like to see what a finance charge is. Okay, now credit card companies are in it to make money. That's what they're there for. They're convenient for us because if you don't have the money at the time, you can purchase something that you need or that you really want, and you can pay it off in installments. Unfortunately, they do charge a finance charge. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the differences based on APR rates, and we're going to say that this credit card has a carryover balance of $1,000. So we're going to see what the difference is in these APR rates and how much it's going to be costing us in the long run. Now, APR stands for annual percentage rate, and so in this case, 10%, 15%, 20%, but finance charges come at a monthly balance there. So what we're going to do, in order to figure out our monthly finance charge, we are going to be taking our APR rate. All right, so that's 10%. We're going to have to convert it to a decimal because we're going to be using it in a mathematical equation here. So 10% is 0.1 or 0.10. And everything then, since it's monthly, we're going to be dividing by 12. So you're basically going to take your APR rate, divide by 12 to get your monthly rate. So you can see then we took this first, divided it, then we multiplied by the finance, our balance, our carryover balance. Okay, so based on either 10%, 15%, or 20%, you can see the differences in these finance charges. So then you can see the balance that we're going to owe. Okay, so it's kind of interesting to see that. So it says how much more interest accumulates with the 20% annual percentage rate versus the other. Well, with the 10% here, it's basically doubled there. So, we really want to qualify for the lowest APR rate as possible, or you want to shop around for the lowest APR rate as possible. Okay, so credit cards are meant to be short term, but if you're like me, my husband and I do have a credit card that, we kind of keep around for a while. Occasionally we pay it off and then, I don't know, we just seem to build back up a little bit again, and it takes us a little bit to pay it off again. But most of this is what I've already talked about that APR rate. Now, the one thing you want to keep in mind is anytime you're going to be getting that finance charge associated with you, the credit card companies do give you a grace window that you can pay this off with. So whatever the due date of your bill, and that's what I do to build my credit, I just pay the whole balance off because I don't charge a whole lot on it. I just charge something small just so I'm keeping that credit going. And so then I just pay off the whole balance. I know that I'm expecting that and I'm saving for that and all that. But if you do not pay your balance off in full, then you have to pay that additional finance charge. Okay, so then that you're beyond that grace period there. Now, since the credit card companies are in it to make money, the first thing that's going to happen is your payment, whatever your payment is first going to go off to pay that finance charge, because the credit card companies want their money first. Then whatever is left over from the finance charge, the remaining balance of your payment goes to actually paying off your balance. So I'll show that in an Excel file in a bit. Okay, so we're going to work through another problem here. Okay, so we're going to say that the APR rate on a credit card here is 16.99%, and we're going to have that balance of $1,000. Okay, so in order to calculate the interest rate per month, you can see over here they took the APR in the form of a decimal, and then they divided it by 12. Sorry, I'm looking ahead over here. Now notice it says, do not round these rates off before completing the calculation. Leave all these decimal values in your calculator. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make, and then they're trying to put these things into WebWorks and it's not coming out correctly because you rounded the numbers out. You really don't want to round anything out, especially with financial information. When you're doing calculations, you keep all those numbers into the calculator or computer until the very end. At the very end, then you round out to the nearest penny or dollar, depending on how they're asking you for the problem there. So even though if I took the APR divided by 12, I get this decimal number, there could be additional decimals after that that aren't really showing up in my calculator screen. So we say, don't write these down and then put this back in. Just keep whatever number you get once you divide that. Keep it in your calculator, then multiply by that 1,000 as your balance here to get that rate. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to keep that number into our calculator, which is going to look something like this after we divide it. Then we're going to multiply by that balance, that carryover balance, and we found that the monthly interest rate is going to be $14, and I'm sorry, the interest is $14.16. Now, here's a couple different ones. It says, let's calculate if I had a balance of $1,650, but I had some different APR rates here. Okay, so we're going to do these couple right here. $1,650 is our balance. The first one has an APR of 23.99%, and the second one has 15.99%. So remember, take your APR, divide it by 12, then multiply by that carryover balance. So you can see with that higher APR value, you have a higher monthly finance charge here. Okay, so remember, the thing you want to do is get the best credit rating so you can qualify for the best rate. Okay, so APR the lower APR resulted in saving $11 there. And that's just in 1 month's time. Okay, so if the credit card balance is zero, there shouldn't be any finance charge every month. And be careful, there are some credit cards out there, especially those that they kind of market to people who don't have good credit, and they say, you know, we guarantee you to have a credit card. They have a monthly fee no matter what, if you have a balance or you don't. So watch out. I know that they give you these big long descriptions of the credit card with this fine print, but really it does pay to read the fine print here. Okay, so if it's APR of 17%, what would be the finance charge on $100? Remember, APR divided by 12, then times that carryover balance. Okay, and you can see we can kind of plot this. So if I had a $100 charge based on this finance charge of 17%, that would be my amount right there. Okay. All righty. So let's complete the table below and plot the ordered plots. Okay, so you can see now if my balance was $200, if my balance was $300 or $400, this is what I would see here. Okay. And you can see that we can plot this. So it's really based on that, it's really steadily increasing there by the same amount. It's increasing by that 17%. Okay, so this is what we would consider a linear equation or a linear model here, because it's increasing each time by that 17%, no matter what that balance was. So if I technically wanted to create a mathematical model for this, since we started out, our starting value was 0. Okay, 0 would be no finance charge. That's kind of my value of B. Remember that Y equals MX plus B. So what would be my slope? My slope would be the rate of change, or that APR divided by 12. That's how it's changing each time. It's increasing by that 17% divided by 12. And X would represent my balance there, and Y represents the total finance charge. So it's just kind of interesting to see how we can create a linear model based on that. Okay, now, once again, if you pay your balance off in full, you don't get a finance charge associated with it when at the end of that grace period. But if you don't pay your balance off in full, then you start getting that finance charge added, that where you have to start paying on that. Now, remember, watch those fine prints, because there's a lot of different things that play into this. So if you make a late payment, they can charge you anywhere between $15 to $39. They can also, if you make a late payment, say you qualified for a really low interest rate, like 5% APR. You got this great interest rate. If you make a late payment, boom, you ruined your credit worthiness. And so they can increase it to as high as 29.99%. And these companies are in it to make money. So yes, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to increase that just dramatically there. All right. Um, be careful that you don't go over your credit limit. Okay, credit limit is, they usually, base it on your credit worthiness. So if you're applying for a new credit card in the very beginning, they usually don't give you a really high credit limit until you prove your worthiness, that you can start paying things off. And so that's another thing you have to be careful of, is not going over your credit limit, because they also charge you fees for going over your limit. Okay. And it says here, failure to make at least the minimum monthly payment, can give you, okay, you missed a payment, so late fee or whatever. So once again, read that fine print. So we're going to work through a scenario to see what happens in a typical credit card here. So here are the parameters for this particular credit card that this student is getting. Okay, so we're going to say that the APR rate is 15.99%. We're going to say there are some penalties associated with it. So it says up to 29.99% depending on your credit worthiness. So, if anything happens that you don't make your payment, you go over your limit, any of those crazy things, they're going to increase that immediately. So if you don't pay it on time, there's a $35 charge. Returned payment fee, if you try to pay it via a bank card and it comes back insufficient funds, then there's a $25 fee associated with it. If you go over your limit, that's $39. But look, they give you cash back rewards. And if you watch a lot of commercials on TV, this is, it's not as hot as it was like a year or two ago, those cash back rewards, but it's still out there, these cash back rewards. But take a look at this. It says earn a full 1% on all purchases after your total annual balance exceeds $3,000. Okay, so after you've charged $3,000, you finally get 1% of that back. But as an additional incentive, they say purchases that are part of your first 1,500 are going to earn 0.25%. Now notice that's already in the form of a percent. So 1/4% in the first $1,500 you spend, you'll get cash back. And then from 1,500 to that 3,000, you're going to earn 0.5%, 0.5%. Okay, your credit limit is based on your income and credit history, and they're going to say that this is $500. And the minimum monthly payment, and typically this is what they do. They have a basic amount, or in this case, $20 is your basic payment, or 5% of your new balance, whichever is larger. And that's typical. They usually have a minimum amount or a percentage. And you don't get a choice. You pay whichever is higher. All right, so we're going to say Jennifer has this new credit card with those rules. Her limit is $500, and she purchases $195 in school supplies at the beginning of the month. So if we look at this, all right, what's her minimum payment going to be? All right, so in this case, it's either 5% or $20. So we figure out what is 5%. So 5% in the form of a decimal is 0.05. And that's $9.75. So in this case, she has to pay the larger of the two, which is that minimum of $20. Okay. Now, if she pays it off, her new balance, if she makes that minimum payment, her new balance is going to be $175. Okay, so notice she's not paying off the whole balance, so she has to pay that minimum payment. So she still has a balance left on her credit card that she's dragging over to the next month. All right, so let's take a look at what's going on here. All right, so we're going to be looking at these questions while simultaneously filling in this chart. So her carryover balance was $175. Okay, let's assume in this case that she's not going to pay it. She's not going to make any additional payments. So what would her finance charge be? Remember, APR divided by 12, then times 175. So $2.33. Remember, she didn't make any new purchases, so there's no additional fees associated because she made her payment of $20 on time. So her new balance now is $177.33. Once again, if I calculate what is 5% of that, that's only $8.87. So her minimum payment has to be that $20. So once she pays that $20, remember that $20 is first going to go to pay that finance charge. Whatever is left over goes to pay off that balance. So that's why we're taking $20 off this new balance. And she is left with $157.33. All right, now she has what is Jennifer's cashback rewards? Okay, so remember, cashback rewards are based on your purchases, and you can only get it on new purchases. So within that first $1,500, it's 0.25%. Remember, that's 0.25%, but we have to convert that to a decimal, which is 0.0025. So if we take 0.25% times that purchase, she only made 49 cents cashback rewards. All right, so you think it's going to be wow, all this cashback rewards, but unless you're really charging a lot and paying this off on a regular basis, it really doesn't pay. And so remember, here's what the number looks like in my calculator, but we're talking money, so you want to round it out to the correct decimal point, which is penny. So round it out to the nearest penny there. All right, so remember, cashback rewards are only on new purchases. Any previous balances don't count. All right, so assume that she's so excited by the prospects of these cashback rewards, she now purchases a $400 plane ticket for spring break. Her cashback rewards is still within that first 0.25%. And so if we take that times her new purchase of $400 plane ticket, she's going to earn $1 whole cashback rewards. So you can see these cashback rewards aren't that very high. All right, now let's take a look what's happened now. All right, remember her carryover balance from that previous month was $157.33. All right, if we take the finance charge, remember APR, divide it by 12 and multiply by this balance. Now, one of the problems though, okay, she purchased a $400 plane ticket, which put her over her $500 credit limit. So her APR is no longer that low amount. It is this new amount of 29.99%. So she blew her credit right away. All right, so now she has to pay this new higher value, and so her finance charge increases. In addition, she winds up paying that $39 fee because she went over her credit limit. So her new balance now, based on all these additional purchases and fees, is now over $600. In this case, she's going to have to pay 5%. Okay, so 5% of that $600 balance is going to be $30.01. Okay, so, and they are pretty particular. Don't just send in $30. You know, they say that, oh, you didn't pay enough. So they're very particular on some of these things. Okay, how much has she earned in cashback rewards? Remember, she's only earned $1.49 in these cashback rewards, but she blew her credit. Now she's got the higher APR, and she also had that $39 finance charge. How much has she paid in finance charges and other fees? Ugh. So this has actually cost her $45.26. So that's why it's important to really watch those credit cards and those due dates and all that. Okay, if she can't make her minimum payment, what's going to happen? Oh, then she's going to have a $35 late fee attached to that. So you got to be careful of that. Okay, so you got to be careful when you've got multiple credit cards, because multiple credit cards usually mean multiple APR rates, multiple due dates, and so on. So you really want to watch out for that, because you want to keep your credit rating the best as possible. Okay, so okay, she blew it on that. She's got a higher APR. Let's try to pay that card off as quickly as you can, or maybe she can transfer and get her balance transferred to another card and start all over again. And she kind of learned her lesson. All right, so that's one of the things you want to keep in mind. Okay, so they're convenient, but you got to watch out, because you want to be paying, you're going to have to pay on that. If it is possible to pay your full balance, do that. Otherwise, try to make the most payment you can, because remember, your finance charge is based on that remaining balance that carries over. So the lower that number is, the less interest you're going to be paying on that. So that's why you always want to pay as much as possible, and not just the simple minimum payment there. Okay. Really try to read all that information that they give you, especially like within the first page. They usually give you the information on the APR rate and any type of penalties that would be associated with that. Okay, so what happens if you get stuck, and they know this is what they're aiming for? What if you get stuck and you can only afford the minimum payment? Ugh. So this is where they've got you. This is where they like to have people, because they're making some good money here. So it says, assume that the credit card has that 22.99% APR and the minimum payment of 3% of the balance each month. If the balance at the beginning of the month is $3,000 and there are no other fees or charges made during the month, can we compute what the charges are going to be for the month one? Okay, so here's what we're going to be computing here. Okay, remember, new APR rate, new balance, new minimum payment. So they don't say $20 or 5%. They're just saying you owe 3%, period. All right, let's take a walk through this. So the finance charge on that $3,000 that's being brought over as that remaining balance, remember, we're going to take the APR divided by 12, because we're looking at the monthly interest rate, then multiply by the balance. So that finance charge is going to be $57.48. Ugh. Okay, now the new balance is going to be that finance charge plus what was carried over. So their new balance is $3,057.48. Now, what's their minimum payment going to be? Remember, the minimum payment is based off of this new balance, okay? If we take 3% of that, yowie, that's already $91.72. Okay, so that's pretty high up there. So the minimum payment covers the finance charge, and anything left over is what pays the balance. So remember, these credit card companies are in it to make money. So here's that payment you're making. The first thing your payment is doing is paying off that $57.48 finance charge. What's left over to pay the actual balance of your credit card? Look at that. $34.24. So your balance is only going to be reduced by a little over $34. That's how they get you. Even though it looks like you're paying, $90 and you think your balance is going to go down by about $90, remember, you have to pay that finance charge first. So it does pay to make as much payment as you possibly can. So what is going to be the new balance? So we're going to take that new balance here minus my payment. And so the carryover balance for the next month is $2,965.76. So it really didn't get reduced that much. Okay, so what can we conclude? A very small portion of the balance actually gets paid off when you're paying that minimum payment. Okay, and they know that. They've got you. Remember, they're in it to make money there. And most of your payment is going to interest. So we're going to take a look. Oh, hint, hint, this would be a really good quiz or test question, filling in a table like this. So maybe we should understand how to get these numbers that look in a chart form like this. Hint, hint. Okay, so we're going to just look at the same exact thing, only we're going to follow this over for a number of months. And notice that they filled in a few of these values along the way to make sure we're on the right track here. Okay, so the finance charge, remember we're going to take APR, divide it by 12, then multiply by $3,000. Okay, so here's the numbers we already just calculated. Our new balance is basically add these two together, the finance charge plus the carryover balance. That's my new balance. And remember, my minimum payment is based on the new balance here. So 3% of that was that $91.72. Now, to carry over to the next month, what do I do to get this number? Remember, don't look at the beginning balance. That beginning balance has already been used with the finance charge. We're done using this number in the first column here. We want to take this new balance minus our minimum payment, and that's going to give us this value here. So now if we do the same process over and over again, APR divided by 12 times this carryover balance from month number 2, okay, you're going to see some of these values here, $56.82. So then if I add these two together, this is my new balance, take 3% of that, and I'm still paying $90. I mean, these minimum payments, look at this, they're still high, these minimum payments. That's because that carryover balance is still high. So the goal is to reduce that carryover balance as much as possible. That's why if you can pay just a little bit more each month, pay as much as you possibly can, that's going to help you, because remember, the finance charge is based on that carryover balance. Okay, and these aren't really going down, these minimum payments here. And remember, it first pays off the finance charge. Whatever is left over actually goes to reduce your real balance. Okay, and I'll just give you a moment to take a look at these questions here. If you want to write these down in your book, I'll give you a moment to kind of go through. Okay, so hopefully you've noticed that within that few months' time, you've paid over $272 in your payments. The total finance charges were $170. So if I take that amount and I subtract that $170, that means I'm only actually paying $101.57 off of my actual balance there. Okay, so my balance really wasn't decreased by those payments. It's decreased after what's left after I've paid those finance charges. Okay, hint, hint. Ooh, these would be some really good quiz or test questions. Hint, hint. Okay, so these are really good, especially part E. Let's take a look at E here. what percent of your payments went to finance charges over this 3-month period. So remember, percent is the same thing as the amount over the base or part out of the whole. Okay, so if we're looking at what percent of our payments went to finance charges, so remember, finance charges here, that's the part out of the whole is all my payments. Okay, and what percent is that? So 63% of what I'm paying actually is going to pay off the finance charges. That means less than or about 30% something is going to pay off the actual balance there. Okay, so about 2/3, almost 2/3 is going to pay off the finance charge there. Okay, and so reflection on this, how to avoid: pay the balance in full, then you won't get a finance charge, or try to pay as much as you possibly can. Also, make your payments on time, stay within your credit limit, okay, and don't have, watch out for those other additional hidden fees there. Okay, remember, it is possible to bring your credit rating right back up, and it does come up very quickly. So, if you've fallen, like I said, everybody has a time in their life. I've experienced it myself. You have a time in your life where, oh my God, I forgot to make a payment, and got to get yourself back on track again. But it does come up really quickly. So I can guarantee you that. Okay, so we're going to look at how do I do this exact same problem using Excel. So this is in your book, but I'm going to pull up an Excel spreadsheet, and we're going to work through this on the Excel spreadsheet, okay, that I have already created here. So exactly the same thing. Okay, put this over on the side here. So I made a little table here, and if you're not sure how to, like when you're typing it in and you want to outline these, so say I wanted to outline, come on over here. Say I wanted to outline these two boxes. You come right over here, and this will say, do I want all borders around that? Yes, I do, that kind of a thing. So I'm going to just go back and undo that, and it goes away. All right, so I set it up just like it was in the book. Okay, my starting balance, how we're going to calculate the finance charge, how do we find the new balance and the minimum payment, and so on. So notice what I have in this first cell. Okay, this is cell what? C3. Okay, here's the cell location, and here is the formula bar. In other words, there's actually no formula in there. It's just the balance of $3,000. Now I formatted this for money, so I'm right-clicking on this. Oh, it usually takes a while to come up once you right-click. Come on. Let me do it again. I'm showing you how I formatted this box here. So if you want it to look like money, I'm trying to get that to come up. This is just not behaving right now. I'm trying to right-click. Well, if you right-click, it's going to come up with the formatting, and you just want to say you want it for money. And credit card companies do go to the nearest penny, so you want it to go out 2 decimal places there. Okay, so it's just not coming up. It'll probably come up right when I'm in the middle of something here. Okay, so I put my balance in. Now take a look at this next cell. How do I calculate my finance charge? So notice what I did. I took my APR in the form of a decimal. And notice I put these in parentheses because we're multiplying and we're dividing here. So because I want this division to be by itself here, I put it in parentheses because I want that APR divided by 12 whatever number comes out to be when I divide that, because remember, parentheses is the first thing in the order of operations, then exponents, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. So whatever number that is, then I'm going to multiply that by the number that I have in C3, which is my starting balance. So what I'm doing here is I use the cell location of the starting balance, and since that APR rate is going to remain the same at 22.99%, it was okay for me to put the actual number in there, okay, because that's not going to be changing. So I am teaching Excel what to do here. Now, when I go to the new balance here, remember, anytime I want to do a calculation, I'm going to start with an equal sign, and the new balance is basically adding these two together. So since I don't want to put a number here, I want to teach Excel what to do, I'm going to click on this. Okay, so I'm going to say, take the number that's in column C. In this case, we're still in row 3, and I'm going to add that finance charge. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter. And there's my new balance. So it basically added these two together. Okay, so remember the minimum payment was 3% of that monthly balance. So what is my minimum payment? I'm going to start with an equal sign, and I want to take 3%. So you can either put 3% times something, or remember, I like to put it in the form of a decimal. So 3% is 0.03 times, okay, remember my minimum payment is 3% of that new balance. So whatever number is in column E there, and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, and then you can see here's my $91.72. Now I have to do one more thing for Excel to know what to do. All right, so the next thing I have to do here is come over to the starting balance for the next month. I'm going to click on this cell location C4. Now to get this number, remember I'm going to take the new balance minus my minimum payment. Remember, we're done using this first column number. We're done. Once we find the finance charge, I'm done using this first column. Okay, that's one of the biggest mistakes students make. They go, oh, well, the balance was 3,000. Here's the payment. I'm going to subtract these two. Oops, wrong. Remember, because you're forgetting all about that finance charge that they want, that credit card company wants. So start with an equal sign. Take the new balance in that month before, which is in cell E3. We're going to subtract that minimum payment. Okay. And then there's my new carryover balance. Okay, now, once I've set all this up, I don't have to put any more formulas in. I'm done putting in formulas. Now all I'm going to do is use the drag function. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click on this box, and I'm going to come to the lower right-hand corner until I see that little black plus sign, and I'm going to drag it. Now notice there's just some zeros here. Now there's zeros here because I haven't finished dragging the rest of these columns here. So now I'm going to come over here, get the little plus sign, drag that down. Whoops, starting to fill some in, but I still don't have the rest of these filled in. Click on that, drag that down. Oops, things are starting to change. And then come on over here and drag that down. So everything gets entered there. So you can see once you teach Excel what to do within that first beginning, using those cell locations, it knows, oh, take whatever balance is here times that, finance charge, which is the APR divided by 12. I get that. Now I'm going to add those two together. Now I'm going to take 3%, and then over here, I'm going to subtract these last two columns to get this number here. So it automatically does that for me. So you can see over 4 months' time, we really didn't decrease that amount very much. Okay, so if I wanted to add these up and see what that new balance, balances of my payments in those 4 months, I can take this. Whoa, sorry about that. I'm just going to highlight these boxes here, okay, because I want to total this up. So I'm going to come over to auto sum. I highlighted the boxes I wanted to add, click that, and it automatically added that for me. So I'm going to put this number over here. So that is what? $360.66. Okay. Now I'm using that as a reference because I'm going to change something, New Balance. So I'm going to come back to this first location here, this New Balance. So let's take a look at that. So my New Balance is here, and my minimum payment, is based on this New Balance here. So I want to reduce that starting balance as much as possible because I don't want to be paying those high monthly finance charges. So what if it's possible, and I'm really trying to, buckle down and pay this off. What if it's possible that I'm going to scrimp and save and I can pay an extra $50 a month? Okay, so whatever that minimum payment is, I'm going to pay an additional $50 a month. Okay, so before I do that, I also want to add up my finance charge here. So my finance charge, I'm gonna just relist it right here, 225.99. Okay, so I put that finance charge here. All right, now let's take a look at what's going to happen. Maybe I should move this. So my functions are just not working on this today. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this. So 360.66. There we go. So it's all in the same column there. All right, so I'm going to say that I can scrimp and save and pay an additional $50. So along with this, whatever monthly payment it's going to be, I'm going to say I'm going to add $50 to that. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. So I'm going to hit enter. All right, I hit enter. All right, and in that case, I want to make sure that I'm going to drag these numbers. Okay, drag these numbers, make sure everything updated. Drag these, let's make sure everything updated. And so my minimum payment, since that's the thing that was affected there, okay, so my minimum payment is a little bit higher, okay, but look what's happening here. I'm paying a little bit less in finance charges, okay, and my balance is a little bit less, okay, because I'm making more. So even though it doesn't look like much in the very beginning, because that balance was $3,000 to start with, you want to try as early in the process, try to make as many additional payments as possible, or pay a little bit extra in the very beginning, because this is where it's really going to make a difference. And I'm only showing the first 4 months. Okay, but we're talking, if you're going to be trying to pay off a $3,000 credit card balance, that's a high balance. And if you're only making the minimum payment, you're going to be pretty much stuck for paying this for years and years and years. So it doesn't look like a lot for those first few months, but it's quickly going to reduce the more and more that's happening here. Okay, so you can see the difference in the finance charge. And yeah, I'm paying a little bit more, but my balance is a little bit less here, because take a look. It's not just reducing by, what, $30 each time. Okay. So that's kind of what you want to aim towards. So in our next session, I'm going to be going over mortgages, and I'm going to be talking about 401k plans, and I'll show you an amortization table with, mortgages are over years time. And I'm going to show you how much money you can save on a mortgage by doing something like this, because paying a mortgage is very similar. Okay, you've got that payment that you're making, and you're being paying interest over the year's time there. Okay, so you can take a look at this. It walks you through this. So this is pretty much what we just got through doing. Okay, this is what I clicked on. Okay, remember, even though you're paying all that money, it pays off the finance charge first. Okay. Now here's an additional explore activity here. I can just give you that to take a look at. Okay, so, oh my goodness, we have finished 5 minutes early today. So that is all I have for you today. If you have any additional questions, I'll hang on the line for any of you to ask any questions. But otherwise, I will talk with you next week, and have a great week. It looks like the temperatures are going to start and having springtime finally. All right, I'll see you next week.